Bassin Magazine podcast. The Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler, folks. I'd like all of us to say a prayer for Brad Yule. He's recovering from a very bad foot infection. He will be back on next week. He told me he's like going to be coming on his way back from a doctor's appointment today. And let's hope he shows up. You know, I love doing these podcasts with Brad. It's so much fun. Today, I have a very special guest, 2016 BFL All American Winner. Nowadays, he fishes the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour. I have none other than Jeremy Lawler from Missouri. How you doing today, Jeremy?
Good. I'll tell you what, it's exciting to be here. I'm glad you asked me to come on the show, and I'm looking forward to it.
Did I butcher your last name? I do apologize.
No, that's no problem. It's lawyer, just like the attorney.
Lawyer. Okay, lawyer. It was too easy.
That's right. I've been called way worse
by better people. Yeah. Folks, it looks like we have a little bit of a lag here, so just bear with us. We're going to get this done, but Jeremy's getting much better reception than most people have. First thing I want to talk about, Jeremy just finished up a tournament up at Cayuga Lake in New York. New York certainly has, big news. New York smallmouth. New York smallmouth. I never thought about that before, but man, these last couple of years, Jeremy, why don't you tell them how many pounds did you end up with one day on Cayuga Lake?
Well, one day I had 25 fish that weighed 75 pounds, so that was a pretty good average, But the guy that was actually leading after day one, Justin Lucas, had like 126 pounds one day, and so New York is definitely a fun place to fish.
126 pounds. 126 pounds in one day.
Yep.
My goodness. And what did that end up? Do you happen to know what that ended up being, and as far as per fish average?
A lot of the guys that we looked at and kind of kept track of, a lot of the averages were above 3 pound average, and that's pretty good anywhere you go in the country, And then some of those were a mix of smallmouth and largemouth, the majority being largemouth, but one guy there actually caught a smallmouth that weighed 7 pounds, 10 ounces. And that is a big smallmouth anywhere in the country. Yeah.
I fished smallmouth my whole life. I told you guys know I grew up in Northern Illinois. I grew up fishing Green Bay, Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie. Man, all the great smallmouth places. I have never caught a 7 pound, 10 ounce smallmouth. Not in my entire life. I have a lot of sixes.
Yeah.
That's a giant anywhere you fish. As far as smallmouth bass go.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that could say that too. A lot of sixes cross the board, but you cross 7, that's a big fish. And the New York state record was just caught up there, and it weighed 8 pounds 5 ounces for a new state record smallmouth.
I did that. That was big news. That was big news.
Yeah.
I just think they're just going to keep getting bigger. Small. I don't think we've heard the last of a big smallmouth. I think that's just it's going to keep getting bigger. Of course, it's going to have
the gobies. Yeah, but the gobies have really started like getting in places they've never been before. And Cayuga got a few gobies in it, and now I think you're going to see the protein really grow the fish much larger than what we've expected in the past.
Boy, yeah, you are exactly right. You are exactly right. As soon as, man, any place that gets gobies in it, they really thought that invasive species was going to be the end. Of course, they always think anything that gets in the Great Lakes, they think is going to be the end. The zebra mussels cleaned up Lake St. Clair. Zebra mussels made the rest of them. We had to adjust the way we fish. We could no longer put mono on the bottom.
Yeah.
But it cleaned up. Now Green Bay is even clearer than it used to be back when I first started fishing it back in the 90s. Lake St. Clair cleaned up almost overnight, it seemed. Gobies came in.
And we've got some zebra mussels here in the Midwest. We've got some zebra mussels here in the Midwest, and they definitely have cleaned up the waters.
But they just you pretty much have to put braid down on the bottom now, because they're going to just put nicks in your line, and we all know what that leads to.
Yeah.
But okay, here on the Bass Magazine podcast, we like to talk confidence. What did you use to catch a 75-pound bag of smallmouth on Lake Cayuga? What do you have confidence in up there?
It was a grass lake, and there was kind of a section of the lake that was probably better than the rest of it, maybe a half a mile long. And there was a lot of boats in it. And the first day of the event, I threw a Zoom speed worm and wound it through the grass, and a chatterbait and a Spro 70 DD crankbait, and just tried to power fish. And I felt like I was around a lot of bass, and there was a lot of boats around me catching them. But I think they just got educated. So by the time I got my third day on the water, I caught my first one winding a Zoom speed worm. And then I had 3 or 4 other ones chasing it as it come to the boat. And I never really could get them to bite, throw anything at them. And I finally got in the rod locker and pulled out a drop shot with just a little 4-inch finesse worm on it. And I started throwing it around. And next thing you know, I didn't put it down at the end of the day, and caught a lot of fish and caught a lot of good ones, and everything. 99% of them came on that drop shot.
So what did you have on the drop shot?
I had just a little Zoom 4-inch finesse worm, something bright. I throwed cherry seed, and I also throwed smoked purple flake. The water was super clean, and I'm not really sure that it really mattered as much as the color, as much as just the fact that when you threw a 10-inch worm out there by them, they were a little bit skittish. And that little tiny finesse worm, they just go ahead and ease over and eat it. And so I think the pressure of the anglers on the lake was showing, but yet the fish were comfortable just eating that little finesse worm. And a lot of the bait in this lake was really small. Other than the perch, the bait fish, the owleye and whatnot, were really small. So it just fit the bill really good.
That's something I've noticed about smallmouth bass. I grew up. Some of my earliest memories were, wading smallmouth streams as a boy, fishing for smallmouth bass. I was up to it in my little Zebco 33, casting the smallmouth bass when I was young. And we would use small, I never am going to get used to this camera. Small little jigs, like 1.5-inch jigs, like stuff you would fish for crappies with.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I've also caught smallmouth bass on great big musky lures, fishing for muskies. Look at this. Look who we have. Hey.
What's up? I couldn't get my laptop to work, so I'm trying to do it from my phone. So what's up, Jeremy? How are you, man?
Good. How are you, Brad? It looks like it's working fine.
Yeah, I'm on my phone, so I hope it works out.
There's
This
like a
first
3-second. Sorry.
Oh,
There's
it's okay. It's
first lag. So with Jeremy. So
okay.
And we're talking about smallmouth bass in the tournament they just had up on Cayuga Lake.
Oh, okay.
And so you were telling us about confidence lures on Cayuga Lake.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to go with what feels good, and that drop shot, no matter where you're at all over the country, you might change the type of bait that you're using on it. But if you're wanting to just generate bites and try to get some momentum going, that's probably one of the best ways to do it. You can catch spotted bass with it. You can catch largemouth. You can catch smallmouth, and you can use a plethora of baits. It doesn't matter if you're sponsored or you like or whatever, whomever your favorite bait company is, they make a drop shot style bait for any situation about all over the U.S. And they bite it from California to Texas to Florida to New York. It works everywhere all over the country. And so it's just something I've got tied on all the time and I've had a lot of success with.
We have a question for you. It's from Cajun Rob. He's one of
All right.
a good fan of our show. He's from Southern Kentucky. And he wants to know if you were nose hooking or Texas rig the finesse worm on the drop shotters.
I tell you what, I want to throw him a curveball here. I kind of quit nose hooking and Texas rigging if it's not necessary. And what I like to do is take like a 1/0 Gamakatsu nano coated drop shot hook that has the keeper on it, like the Aaron Martin style 1/0 straight shank. And I actually just thread the entire worm on there and then bring it out the back like you would a swim bait. And that has you an exposed hook and it gets you about an inch back in the worm. And so when they're coming up and just nipping at your worm, or they're not wanting to try and get the entire worm in their mouth, there's still a lot of times you still hook them. The second thing it does is you don't go through near as many baits. When we're on the road and we fish, 4 to 8 days in a row, issues with having enough baits is a problem. And so rigging your worm this style actually keeps you from going through so many baits. And then your hookup ratio is really, really well, having the hook actually back in the bait about an inch. And so that's how I've kind of started doing it. As long as the cover will allow you to throw it that way, I've about 99% of the time quit nose hooking. I just thread it right on there and expose the hook.
That was a great question. Thank you, Rob. And thank you, Jeremy. Great answer to that. Jeez.
Do you ever bury that point of that hook if you're in super clear water?
No, if the water's clean or dirty, I don't mind either way. I've done it on St. Clair and I've done it on Lake Erie and I did it at Cayuga. But what really will dictate you to make you have to actually Texas rig it old school is the fact that if you're fishing around cover like standing timber or brush or bushes or whatever it might be, to where you just can't get hung up in your structure.
Yeah.
Wow, good answer, man. Good answer. Where are you going to next?
We're going to go up to La Crosse, Wisconsin for a writers conference and spend a few days up there. And then the Bass Pro Tour is up there at Mille Lacs Lake, a well-known smallmouth destination in Minnesota for our final event. And so the year's kind of winding down, but that's our next 2 stops that I've got.
Wow, La Crosse, Wisconsin. I mean, if you want to fish smallmouth there, you can fish smallmouth. There are no spots there, but there's also largemouth. If you want to, a lot of people frog there, a lot of people jig there. Anything you want to do, a lot of people swim bait.
There's massive pike that'll eat your frog.
Massive pike. Massive pike.
Those pikes are everywhere.
Man.
Well, we don't have them down here in Baton Rouge, but
yeah, we don't have them in Oklahoma.
You don't allow them in Oklahoma.
Well, we don't have them in Missouri, but I'm never fishing in Missouri, it seems like, anymore.
Right?
You don't fish in Missouri anymore. That's funny. You're on the water 300 days a year, but you don't fish in Missouri.
Yeah.
I like that. Man, but La Crosse, then Mille Lacs, man. Mille Lacs is another place you got a massive pikes, but this is not the Pike and Magazine podcast. So.
Right. Hey, it's fun to catch one every now and then.
Oh, it is. It is.
It is. They're fun to catch any day except on game day when you're in the tournament.
Except on game day.
Worth a darn to catch.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so much fun. Man, have you ever been on Mille Lacs before?
I went up there and pre-practiced 30 days ago before it went off limit, and I spent 3 days there. But that's the only time I've ever been there. It really kind of reminded me of like a little tiny Okeechobee. You know, there's a big bowl lake, but about 80% of the fishing goes on everywhere but the center. And so that's kind of how Okeechobee is. You know, nobody spends a lot of time out in the middle. And so it was a cool lake, a cool area. I'm looking forward to going back. I caught a few fish, and you know, I'm hoping to end the season strong up there.
There's a lot of rock piles.
Yeah.
And you know, I haven't been there for 20 years, so I guess I can probably talk to you about it. No.
I've never been up there. I've never fished that lake.
We don't want to say anything specific. Yeah, we don't.
Well,
yeah,
I just said rock piles.
Specific.
Yeah, I haven't been there for 20 years. So
if you're going to go try and catch us, if you're going to go catch a smallmouth anywhere up north, you better be around a rock pile. So that's not too much out of the ordinary.
Yeah, go to the rock piles. Well, there's only about 600 of them on that lake. Well, good. You know, I caught a lot of smallmouth bass in Green Bay on the sand flats. And also,
but those sand flats are next to a rock pile.
Are they?
Well, you got a big rock pile, and then it evens out, and those fish are hanging right there in Green Bay. I mean, that's And
there's not. That's about all you have. You have a couple of saddles and a bunch of rock piles and shoals. Okay. So what did it take to win that tournament at Cayuga?
I think Dustin Connell won it on the final day with like 94, 96 pounds, something like that. It was pretty tight there at the top. So, you know, the fish, definitely the lake showed some pressure after we had been there several days in a row catching them. No doubt, you know, they got a little bit educated, and he actually won it with smallmouth, and that was one of the few guys that was actually fishing for smallmouth. And, you know, probably 95% of the anglers were trying to catch largemouth, but in the end, smallmouth prevailed.
Wow, that's an interesting point. So is there a great population of largemouth there too?
Yeah, there is, but there was probably a lot of anglers that didn't get to look at the smallmouth, you know, myself included. You know, when you've got a day and 3/4 of practice, whatever you land on the first day, you've got to kind of just go with it and make it work for the next day of practice. To try and take and stop fishing for largemouth and go smallmouth fishing on day 2, it would have been hard to do. And then you get yourself kind of strung out and spread out on the lake. And next thing you know, you're trying to do too much. So I think sometimes you just got to take with what you find first. And no doubt the end of the lake that we had the event out of was definitely where all the largemouth were. And so most guys, when they got a few bites in the morning, they just tried to expand on it the next day and a half and make it work, and myself included. And not that there were several guys didn't have great events, but in the end, smallmouth prevailed.
Was there a lot of mixed bags, a lot of smallmouth in with the largemouth, or was it mostly largemouth and then mostly smallmouth?
Well, we're not allowed to watch any of the live action. We can only watch the score tracker. But looking back and watching some of it after it's over with, there was a handful of guys that had schools of both. But for the most part, I think guys were really catching the majority of largemouth.
Yeah.
Wow. So how many days of practice do you guys have before an event?
We get one full day, and then we have to be off the water at 6 o'clock in the evening, period, on day 2. And, you know, this time of the year at like Cayuga, it stayed daylight to almost 10 o'clock, 9:30. But really our day was kind of cut short. So really you get like a day and 3/4 when you show up. And, you know, it's a little bit tough to come to a new lake that you've never been to before and try and figure it out in a day and 3/4 and make it work. And so, like I say, you just kind of got to go back with what you find first and what you land on, and try to roll with it as hard as you can.
Confidence bait and go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there may be a bait that works a lot better than what you're using. But on the other hand, you're trying to get some bites and generate some bites to put together a pattern. And you may not even get to throw the bait that wins the tournament because you didn't have time to gamble. You were too busy just trying to get some information and get some bites and that kind of deal. And that's just kind of part of tournament fishing, and sometimes you learn something, sometimes you don't, and you just kind of roll with it.
Yep. So I was a little late. So you were talking about drop shot rigging, that you always have a drop shot on. Is that a confidence bait that you have, or you can catch fish on it? What else is tied on?
Well, I tell you what, the drop shot really was not a big part of my arsenal until joining the Bass Pro Tour, because we weigh everything that's over 2 pounds. And so when you need to generate bites and get something rolling, the drop shot will definitely do that. I've kind of made a career out of fishing, power fishing, and only getting 6, 8, 10 bites in a day's time, which I'm good with that. But in this format, these boys will just run off and leave you. So I've kind of mixed in the drop shot to really try to protect myself and get those filler fish that you need in that lower end range, like that 2 to 3 pound range. Not that it won't catch a big one, but it just gets you bites and keeps you in the hunt, because 90% of the time I would just as soon take a jig and flip it around cover or shallow or even out deep. But a jig is something that in the Midwest was what we just had tied on 365 days a year. And I had a lot of confidence growing up, and it may catch you a really big sack of fish in a 5-fish limit format, but in a day's time, there's probably not enough bites to be had in order to compete at the Bass Pro Tour style of fishing. So I'm trying to blend the two and pick up a drop shot when I can, and then try to catch a big fish when I can too. And it's just kind of a learning curve that I definitely have not perfected, but I'm hoping to be able to blend them together and kind of get familiarized with when to use each one of them.
So you're out there, there's a score tracker in your boat, or a Marshall, or whatever they're called today, and you've got a jig tied on, you've got a drop shot tied on, you're making a cast, you're catching fish on a jig. The score tracker's keeping you live on, hey, there's 4 people in front of you, you're 4 pounds down. At what point do you say, okay, I know I can catch a 4-pounder around these trees, I'm going to stick with my jig, I'm just going to hit the trolling motor, we're going to go over here real fast? Or do you just stay on that bank until you get to those trees and keep throwing that jig? And when do you decide, hey, I need a big fish?
Well, now that's the $1 million question that we'd all like to know. If we knew that, then it'd be a done deal. But I think what a guy needs to realize. What's that?
Is it easier to, hey, I can catch, 3 2-pounders and now I'm not four down, than it is to go after 1 4-pounder to catch up?
Absolutely. Yes, you have to play the numbers game. The numbers will prevail every single event that we've been to. Nobody has been able to take quality over quantity and hold the top spot. So you've got to get a little bit of that mentality of I need some bites, I need to generate some numbers, and then play the numbers game. And in a day's time, it's going to come out all right. And I think a little bit of that is hard to do once you have tried to catch 6 or 8 bass in a day's time your whole career. And now we're going to where you need to catch 20 in a day's time. And it's made you mix up your tackle and your arsenal and your approach a little bit. But I think all a person can do is try to blend a little bit of both. And at some point, you'll be able to figure out when that time is to go catch 2 or 3 and when that time is to try and catch a big one. But I'm a long ways from figuring that out yet.
And there's 200 other anglers that don't know that either.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's $1 million question. It's kind of a fickle deal.
Exactly.
But where I was going with it, Jeremy, was, you're in the boat. It's mental because this guy's behind you telling you, hey, you're 4 pounds out of first place. Am I fishing faster? Am I fishing harder? I still have to slow down and fish, but I've got to hurry up to slow down. It's kind of catch-22.
All that stuff. Yeah, all that stuff. I mean, it'll make you get to going so fast on the trolling motor that you don't even realize it because you're paying more attention to him as your official rather than what the fish are doing. And so I've had examples of all that for sure, this year. And it's definitely a learning curve. I think some of these guys that have fished the Bass Pro Tour since it started, this is their 4th year, and they've learned how to kind of house some of that to where to block out the official and actually focus on what you're doing, or use the official to your advantage to try and know when to change. But I've only had 6 events at this format, and so it's a little bit different to try and figure it out. So it's really exciting though. It'll make you really run harder than you should at times. And there's no relaxed time. A lot of times in a 5-fish limit, when you catch that 5th one, you kind of have a little bit of idea of, well, I need to go catch a big one. I got a limit, but I need a big one. Or do I keep catching numbers? In this thing here, you don't have any downtime. You got to catch everything that you can catch and keep rolling with it.
So you're going to – okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jake. Go ahead.
You're going to Mille Lacs. You've only been there for a couple of days. You're not allowed to get any official information. Wow. It just seems like a daunting task to me. You have a day and 3/4 to find your fish. Jeez. That just seems like a daunting task to me. So you're going to go out there and you're going to stick with your confidence lures, obviously. But are you just going to key in on a couple? Do you usually just key in on a couple different areas, or?
All right. Well, here's what you're going to have to, or here's what I feel like I'm going to need to make the decision on at Mille Lacs to start with. All right. The weather is going to be a big player at Mille Lacs. If the wind blows out of the north, you will not be able to fish the south end of the lake, and vice versa. Right. If it blows out of the west, you'll have to fish the west side of the lake. So I might have a really good group of fish or a good area that I think I want to go to, but if the wind blows out of the wrong direction every day, I'll never even get to see them. And so you're at a little bit of mercy of what the weather does to start that event and start that practice, because you only can go to the side of the lake the wind's blowing from, because the other side's going to be trashed. And so it's just kind of a fickle deal. You got to roll with it and see what you can do. The good thing about that is no other person is going to be able to fish the other side of the lake either. So we're all in the same boat against the same obstacles. So it's kind of going to be a little bit of a catch-22, and then see what it is. Even if you go out that day and you find a really good group of fish, if the wind switches on the day that you fish, more than likely
everything changes.
You're not going to be able to fish for them. So, yeah, you got to have – at Mille Lacs, the 2 days or day and 3/4 of practice really comes into play, because you have to have something on all 4 sides of the lake depending on what Mother Nature throws at you. So it's as I've done more of this at different levels throughout my career, the stuff that I never thought about before, I try to think about all the time, because just like the weather, it's going to play a huge role.
Wow, another good answer.
Yeah,
another good answer.
My mentality to go out there and fish. Hey, you're a rookie. Here you go. You better start catching fish. I mean, I'm tying on a rooster tail and I'm catching as many fish as I can.
Well, if that's what it takes, I'm game. I'm not too good to throw a rooster tail. I'll throw it out there with the rest of them. It doesn't bother me one bit.
I mean, it works, right? You're gonna catch everything, but yeah, you'll wear that marshal out. That's the object, right? Make him tired.
That's the whole goal. That's the whole goal at the end of the day. That's fact.
Yeah. Yep.
So here's
Wow.
one: is a Wacky Rig one of your go-to presentations, since you have to catch as many 2-pounders as you can?
Yeah, a lot of places around the country, especially on spotted bass locations, the Wacky Rig's a really, really good deal. It's really good around the spawn, but I don't think you're going to see it play like that big at Mille Lacs. I think a lot of the fish at Mille Lacs are going to be caught, on the standard smallmouth stuff, drop shot and a swim bait and maybe a hair jig and a tube, that kind of deal.
I was going to ask you,
and then
still tube?
Oh, absolutely. A tube is a really good bait for 2 reasons. One, it catches a lot of numbers. All different sizes eat it, but it also catches a giant one as well. And so that's one of those presentations and baits that you can use and not have to change anything, because you have the chance of catching both calibers of fish. And so, no, a tube will definitely play up there. And then there'll be some guys that want to try and catch largemouth back in the bays and in the grass, and throw a chatterbait and wind a worm and throw it top water. And largemouth will definitely play in this one too. Nobody ever goes to Mille Lacs to catch them,
that's where
because they want to catch a big giant smallmouth. But in this format, well, you're just going to have to weed through the pike. That's just how it's going to go down.
Right.
So yeah,
you
no
talk
doubt.
about giant pike. Mille Lacs is famous for giant. Also, Mille Lacs is famous for 50-inch muskies.
Oh, wow.
Well, I probably won't ever catch one in practice, but I'll catch one on game day. I guarantee you, and get my heart broke. That's how that works.
You'll make
they
it
never find my boat
muskie.
until, yeah.
I mean, that's why a lot of people went to Mille Lacs from where I grew up. Northern Illinois. They were up there chasing muskies. You drove that far to catch what? Muskies?
I would. Yeah. That's a fish of a lifetime, though. I mean, that is.
That is. I always muskie fishermen were always making fun of me because I fished for bass and walleyes. Oh man, that's bait. Yeah, whatever. Don't hate because you can't catch them.
You throw the hair jig. Well, that a muskie will eat that for sure.
Oh yeah.
What's the freedom?
Yeah.
Is it the hydro? What's it called? The freedom tackle hair jig.
Freedom tackle.
Hot.
Yeah, it's the hydro hair. Yeah.
Hydro hair. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you, back in the day, that was practically all I threw for smallmouth bass was just a green pumpkin tube with a and you stuck the tube jig up its hind end and pushed it through.
That's how I still rig it too. Jeremy,
like
do you rig a tube different?
I tell you what, I don't rig it any different. I started using that new Freedom head that they have for this year, and it's a really very good balanced head. It has the hook on the top half of the lead, and then it gives the goby profile, but it makes a flat spot on the chin of the tube, and I really like that for when it lays on the bottom and you snap it. It glides it. So the guys at Freedom have really put a lot of work in to make that a really great head. And then it's got a Gamakatsu hook in it. So yeah, it's a great product. But no, a tube is just a really great way to cover some water and actually find a group of fish too. And then you can just catch every one of them in the group. I mean, it's just a great bait, been around forever and going to be around for years to come.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I like about smallmouth bass, what you said just right there. And you can catch every one of them. Smallmouth bass are much more of a social fish than the largemouth bass is. They hang around.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it takes as much tackle to catch or to fish for smallmouth either. There's only a handful of baits really genuinely are made for smallmouth. Now, they'll bite a topwater and they'll bite a chatterbait and they'll bite largemouth baits. But for the majority, it does not take near as much tackle to fish a smallmouth event as it does a largemouth event. And that's always kind of intrigued me a little bit. So,
one thing we talked about on the phone, Jeremy, Southern anglers, Brock Mosley, you, geez, now my memory's failing me. But Derek Hudnall, a bunch of other guys from the elites and the Bass Pro Tour. You guys go up there and fish smallmouths, and you dominate. I think that is such a story. I love talking about that. And I'm from the north, I readily admit. Sorry, I thought I lost you guys.
I got you. I'm still here.
I just had something pop up on my screen. I'm like, not again.
Hey,
Brad will tell you.
Yeah, it's the Bassett Magazine podcast. It wouldn't be our podcast without technical difficulties.
Yes, exactly. But we talked about a little bit on the phone why the southern anglers do so well up north. You want to expound on that?
I think that I think the southern lakes definitely are harder to fish because of the pressure. The lakes down south never get a break. 24/7, 365, somebody's fishing on them. And I think if you can learn to figure out how to generate bites on those bodies of water when you go up north, you're talking about an area of the country that freezes over, 4 or 5 months a year and gives the fish a break. I don't think the fish are quite as educated. And so I don't want to say it seems easier, but it's a different type of fish you're trying to catch. And I think it just is a little bit easier to generate bites as a whole and then figure out how to catch the ones you want to fish for. And so that northern fishery stuff is something probably that a lot of us leave the south and go north thinking we've got a lot more confidence that we're gonna catch them. And I think that there's just a lot of better population of fish as well. So it contributes to a number of things as to why some of the southern anglers are really good northern fishermen. And I think part of it's just the fact that the northern fisheries are so good.
Wow. They're definitely different. There's the fish per acre, the way that the fish are distributed. I think there's just so much cover down south. When I first started fishing Florida, being from Northern Illinois, I looked at it and said, Dad, where do we start? I'm looking at this shoreline, and it all looks like it should hold fish, and it should. If you read the book on bass, it's all of it looked textbook. But you go up north and you have elements of structure. Like here's a riprap shoreline. Over there's some standing timber. You got rock. You have rock reefs that go on for miles on Lake Erie. And that's what
you got rock reefs that go on for miles in Missouri, don't you?
Yeah. But it doesn't hold the fish. It doesn't hold the fish like it does out there in the Great Lakes region.
See, and that's what I think too. I would rather go north, and in Oklahoma, our lakes are rocky like your lakes: Bull Shoals, Table Rock, Lake of the Ozarks. Grand Lake is just like that. Our lakes are those rocky valleys that are lakes like that. That's in Missouri and Arkansas. And when you go north, yeah, you still have that, but what you have is grass lines mixed in that. You have the number of fish are different because of what you're saying, where the season's close, those fish can, eat and forget, where down south they don't.
Yeah, they just work on them every week. Like if there's a group of fish on a grass line, some new hydrilla, and some anglers find them, they'll fish the next 3 or 4 tournaments in the next 3 or 4 weeks and just absolutely eradicate the school until they just move on or something. And you can't blame them. They're trying to compete to win and everything, but the fish just don't set up and stay the same. Yeah.
And back to the grass comment, we've got a couple lakes here that has reeds or some hydrilla or what I call the pond grass. It's the little leaves, But when you go north, those lakes have all of that. You can go to a separate area in the lake and find what kind of grass you want to fish, where the lakes in the southern don't.
And there's going to be a group of fish there wherever you choose.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And the whole lake has grass, where our lakes here, maybe only a certain shoreline has it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Jeremy, I wish you the best of luck up there at Mille Lacs.
Heck yeah.
I am jealous. I have not been to
Thank
Mille
you,
Lacs
guys.
since my 20s. Now, I said 20 years, but actually it's more like 30 years since I've been there. So my information is no good. I'm sure the lake has changed in that time.
Yeah, I'd love to fish it. I'm very interested to see how you do. I know you'll catch them, but it'll be cool to watch and learn, because I've never been there.
Yeah, I love watching the elites and the
the
Bass
best
Pro
thing
Tour
about
go up north.
The best thing about the Bass Pro Tour going up north is the fact that you're going to get to see whoever is catching them, because they're going to bring a camera and put them on them, and so it's really cool. Even if you're not that guy, they're going to showcase the lake and how it is, and it's one of those special places in the country, so it'll be a good show to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a good show to watch. Jeremy, do you have any shout outs you'd like to do?
Well, I tell you what, I always enjoy doing these. I've known Brad for a few years now, and I just met you, Jay. But, it's just a great time to get together and talk some fishing, and I always like to thank all my sponsors that support me, because it takes a full circle to go around and keep everybody going in the right direction and trying to build the best products and catch as many fish as we can. And it's just a great industry to be in. So I don't have anybody I want to single out, but just thanks for everything and every part of it. I enjoy it all.
Well, we appreciate you coming on and being a guest. Sorry that I was late. I know there's a little bit of technical difficulties. You're lagging, but we're going to overcome that as we get better, and we'll have you back. I appreciate it a ton.
Yes. Thank you so much.
I thank you. I hope you get all healed up and get everything healed up with yourself and everything to get feeling better.
There we go. Yeah, I'm good. I'll heal. I still have my stitches in, but we're good. Yeah, it's all good. It's positive. Everything's positive, so I'm super happy. So thank you, iCast.
Good deal. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, you threw me off there, Brad.
I mean, it is what it is, but
it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is. But man, Jeremy, it was a thrill to have you on the show. Just a thrill. Man, you just jam-packed this full of information. I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in to watch the Bassin Magazine podcast. Guys, Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler, and we love having people like Brad, who fishes all the time, to come in here and help the Weekend Angler catch more fish in the limited time he has to fish. And thank you, Brad, for coming on and talking to our fans.
Yes. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Brad. And also, Brad,
thank you, guys.
To have you back on the show. And anyways, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. And with that, guys, go on out there this weekend and have fun, because remember, you only get to do this once. And with that, I'm going to end the show. And Jeremy and Brad, please stick around.